So if anybody's watching the video later on the YouTube channel, this is what we were talking about.
Right.
And then if they want to pause it and then just read through it quietly themselves, but that's what we were talking about.
Do we need to know more about a spirit of the extent of the responsibility of that spirited place, and do they have the authority to give permission for what you're wanting to do, if what you're wanting to do has an effect beyond their patch?
My experience with these is that they are in a way nested. They're a bit like Russian dolls. There are these spirits that are of substantial magnitude and influence and cover a large area, and then within that there are these almost subsets. I noticed that up around here. That there are the ones of the house, the village, the area, and larger ones as well, and they all seem to be, in a sense, nested in together.
And dowsing, to me, is very much like that. You have to be focused on something and wanting to communicate with it or interact with it to be affected by it.
I found the biometer very powerful, a very powerful addition to use in my own alphabetic numeric code of card, maybe because of the numbers, words and colours each represent very powerful energy in themselves.
So it's the idea of, it's really, I use it really as a gauge to gauge the starting point of somebody, and then to ascertain that that what we've investigated, what we've released, has had the effect of altering a person's vibration into the normal range. And if a person can maintain and sustain their vibration in the normal range, then automatic healing, natural healing will take place. So that's how I've come to use the biometer.
I personally use a copper water pipe filled with a shungite mix of mortar, a mix of shungite and mortar in the copper pipe. But I believe meditating or praying over a line can shift it to a safer location, say away from the sleeping place.
I'm just going to leave Mave's question there for about 30 seconds because I forgot to start recording.
Spirit of the I thought I'd find out if I too, although I didn't think my house needed healing, did I have a spirit of the fabric of the house? And to my astonishment, when I asked the wall, are you the spirit of the fabric of the house, I got a response. So now I include the spirit of the space of my house, the spirit of the fabric of the house, and other beings in my house and garden in my Friday blessings, which I do because it's all part of our mutual well-being. But the spirit of the space of my house does not communicate with beings in my garden. And that was a revelation to me. And also it ties in with what I'd found in a churchyard, because a spirit of place can, in the landscape, can cover a large patch. And I suppose you might call that the spirit of the landscape. But say in a churchyard, there would be what might be called a more localized site guardian. And their patch ends where the churchyard wall ends. I've seen, I've been asked, I've asked to be shown the extent of their patch, and you go walk through the lynch gate and their patch ends. So I wonder if they're comparable a site guardian of a church and churchyard and the spirit of the space of the house. But I better let someone else talk, because I could go on.
Thank you.
Mm.
I think you should go on. I think it's really interesting what you say.
But it also brings into the conversation, if you do have a localized spirit of place, be it the spirit of the space of a home or a localized site guardian of a churchyard, they're responsible for what's on their patch, but they may not communicate with beings outside their patch, and beyond the extent of a churchyard wall. So asking permission of that sort of spirit of place, you get permission for doing something on their patch, but they don't have the authority to say something that would have an effect beyond the extent of their patch. So there's that question as well. There have been times where I've thought I knew the spirit of the space of the land, you know, with the large patch, and I wanted to do something in a churchyard, and I was allowed to do it, but they weren't allowed to help me. Then I worked out I was asking the wrong spirit of place for help. I had to ask the localized spirit of place, but so because it was happening on their patch. But I just wonder if there's a conversation about, do we need to know more about a spirit of the extent of the responsibility of that spirit of place, and do they have the authority to give permission for what you're wanting to do, if what you're wanting to do has an effect beyond their patch? I don't know. And we haven't even mentioned deceased humans who have been attached to a place in life and don't want to leave it in death. And there's another rich seam. But and you mentioned Graham Gardner. I'm only talking because everyone else is silent. You mentioned Graham Gardner, George, and he did a Zoom talk for the 5 group, or the Southwestern group of Dowsers, and he talked about a spirit of place. And he said, this is, again, I'm sure it's up to however you perceive it, as far as I'm concerned. But he talked about sacred sites always have a spirit of place. And then I didn't quite know what he was thinking of for a spirit of place anywhere else, anywhere that wasn't a sacred site. Yeah. And I mean, I know there's the argument that anywhere is a sacred site, and that there be beings from the other world there. And because, he'd work in a town perhaps. So I asked him, is there not a spirit of place there where you in a town? But he said that other places have a devic being. Now, my view would be that devic being assumes the role of a spirit of place. But he made a distinction between a devic being and a spirit of place of a sacred site. Right. And my only experience of that was that I was having a little episode where undines or water nymphs kept cropping up for me.
What is a devic being?
Well, might we call it a luminous being, or an earthbound angelic being, or a nymph, or an elemental, perhaps? That's a word that's more... Is that okay, using that language?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So at the time that water nymphs, Devic beings or undine, they said they preferred to be called water nymphs rather than undines. I don't know if that was that particular batch. And on Facebook, no, I was on my phone and it popped up in Google News that a nymphanium had been discovered in Bulgaria.
Oh.
And I thought, well, this is coincidental that, you know, I'm having all these experiences with water nymphs and then my phone comes up with a nymphanium. It was a Roman place where there were springs and waters and water nymphs were worshipped. So I connected with the spirit of place there, and that was of a different order. That was, I mean, that was beyond what I've experienced, you know, in connecting with elementals. So I can understand what Graham Gardner meant when he says that a sacred site will have a spirit of place and elsewhere there'll be Devic beings or nymphs or elementals or whatever you want to call them. But, you know, if someone wants to say it's just a general ambience of the place, that's fine by me. It's how it is for them.
What did you experience then, Ali? If you're able to, with
it was.
You said it was off a different. It was a different level.
Order. Yeah, it was just a different magnitude of power and awe, and strength. And apparently, it was just coincidence that the Google story had popped up on my phone, but there's no such thing as coincidence, and maybe it was so I could tell you about it now.
I don't know about coincidence, but it's probably push technology responding to something you've said near your phone.
Yeah, it's funny how you learn to recognize what just pops up. Is this something I should follow up, or is this just technology having its wily way?
Yeah, I suppose you've got to trust your intuition on that.
Yeah.
I can add a little bit. My name's Angus. I live up in the northwest corner of Scotland.
Hi, Angus.
Hi there. Hi. My experience with these is that they are in a way nested. They're a bit like Russian dolls. There are these spirits that are of substantial magnitude and influence and cover a large area. And then within that, there are these almost subsets. I noticed that up around here. There are the ones of the house, the village, the area, and larger ones as well. And they all seem to be, in a sense, nested in together.
An interesting way of saying it. Do the ones in the middle, the center, if we're calling that the middle of the Russian doll, do they communicate with the layers outside?
I would say yes, because they're actually part of it.
Yeah.
They're not separate from, they're not like, although they may have boundaries of influence and areas of influence, they're not, in a sense, separate from their larger, more influential guardians.
So connected to, but separate from.
Yeah, you could say that. They're sort of individuating down into houses and gardens and so on. But within the aura and within the consciousness of these larger, sometimes almost planetary scale lives.
May I? I've been keeping ever so quiet. Ali.
Hi, David.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi all.
Mhm.
Coincidentally, Spirit of Place, this picture behind me is one of those places that even I kind of steer clear of most of the time.
Right.
The on the other side from the tree, those branches growing into the ground from a beech tree, and where the branches are growing into the ground, they kind of run into an energy line that runs down through the park, and that's intersected by a couple of other lines, which creates the type of anomaly that I would find at Roman Roman, not churches, temples, yeah. But then the tree itself has got a spiral on the trunk. So that is actually has an energy flowing up the trunk, which is causing it to spiral. And then get my hand to go right. That way. No. That way. on my left, there is another anomaly, all underneath this tree. And I would say that the tree obviously has a spirit, has a soul.
Of course it does.
So there is a spirit of place in the tree, but that doesn't seem to have much to do with the fact that it is being forced to grow in a very strange way, twisting. And so to me, the spirit of this place is the earth energies, water lines, sound lines, and magnetic lines all kind of colliding, creating a real kind of a mess of the energy there. And if somebody was susceptible to the type of energy that is here, like if they had something wrong with their energy, which was already out of harmony, and they walked into this and it was the same color energy, it would instantly cause it to kick off, to amplify it. And they might have an instant headache, or they might have trouble breathing, or they might get all sorts of problems just because they've entered the same type of energy as their problem. So if you're asking if you should go into the spirit or the energy of that place, is always advisable, because sometimes you can just be upset by it.
But would you beforehand, would you do some sort of protocols that you're, I don't know,
No,
aligned with?
this is me, Ali. I just go in head first and suffer the consequences, and so that I can figure out what on earth's going on there. But anybody else that has any kind of issues, so I would suggest that they ask permission. Yeah.
Mary's got a hand up. Do you want to come in, Mary? I think you've gone off for a while. I'll check again. Sorry, David. Carry on.
That's what I was going to say. That's quite short for me, I know. I'm sorry. But, I mean, I could carry on for another half an hour if you wished. But there are other questions, and other people I'm sure would like to say something on that. Linda.
David, hi. I would like to ask you then, you're saying about asking permission if you're going to that particular beech tree. Now, I'm a member of the Ramblers, and we go out walking, and we might stop and picnic somewhere during the ramble. And obviously, we're you know, the majority, well, apart from myself probably, we're not dowsers, so we're not even thinking about that. So we don't ask permission, we just sit there. Are there consequences?
Yeah, if you're not thinking about it, this is another thing that I found quite often. If you're not thinking about something, you're not going to be affected by it. It's only when you focus on something and you want to connect to it that you're at risk of being affected by the energies that you're interacting with. I mean, I've walked down a lane with people who say that they suffer from other people's energies and phones and etc. And this one lady I was walking with, we walked past a couple of people, but we were deep in conversation, okay? And when they had passed, I said, what do you reckon on those two people? And she hadn't been affected by them at all. And she had to stop, turn around, look at them, to connect with them, to get an impression of them so that she could then be upset by them. Yeah. And that's what it's kind of like. And there I was walking along with my phone in my pocket that she said that she was upset by, right? And when I took my phone out of my pocket about 10 minutes later, she went, oh, as you know, she was totally surprised that I had, but she didn't know it was there, so she couldn't focus on it. And dowsing to me is very much like that. You have to be focused on something and wanting to communicate with it or interact with it to be affected by it. But otherwise, it just kind of all bounces off and...
Thank you. Thank you for that. And can I ask, it was Angus, when he was talking about that he sees spirits as like Russian dolls. How would he define those spirits? Is he talking elementals or what?
I guess from my experience and what I've learned over the years, elemental is not far off. Yeah, elemental is not far off. And then I think probably the Davic or the angelic lives are of a higher frequency altogether, and are not so, in a sense, earthbound.
Thank you, Angus. Thank you.
Can I ask you, Angus? Oh, we can change topic if you like, but or someone else can come in. But you said not particularly earthbound for elementals. Where do gnomes and giants rest with you then?
Gnomes, I'm not familiar with them.
Oh.
I've not had any experience with them at all.
Angelic lives.
Here's Mary back again.
Angelic lives.
Yeah, sorry.
Peter, can I just, excuse me, just one sec?
Yeah.
Peter, could you mute yourself and then unmute when you want to say something?
Oh, I thought that's what I did.
No, I'm talking to Peter.
Oh.
Peter Corbett?
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Can you mute yourself, Peter?
I've done it. I've done it.
Okay. Sorry, Mary, it's yours.
Yeah, sorry, I had to take that phone call. I've had an unfortunate experience in that somebody erroneously joined me to a chat group that's to do with child abuse. So I had to call the police to come and have a look at the stuff on my phone yesterday, and they were just giving me a follow-up call, which is, you know, not something that happens every day, is it? Anyway, that's where I went. Are we still talking about spirit of place, or has it all moved on since I put my hand up and went away?
Still talking about spirit of place, yeah.
Oh, right. Well, I'm sorry there's been a hiatus, but some things occurred to me earlier on in the conversation. And one is that there can be a spirit of place that's been put there deliberately, and it can be not a nice one. It can be to do with a curse or some kind of force field put there to keep a particular group of people away. And there's a lot of those in North America that the American First Nations people put on the land. And there are dowsers that lift them. There's two ways of looking at that. I'm inclined to say people shouldn't have their land stolen, and I've got a lot of sympathy with people who want to keep invaders off their land. So on that grounds, I wouldn't lift one of those. On the other hand, the other way of looking at it is it's really bad karma for people to put curses on and for them to remain for a long time. So, but I don't think I'd lift it without asking permission from the people whom it was protecting. In my misspent youth, I had an argument with a local farmer that I did some casual work for, and he ploughed up the corner of a field that was full of bluebells, and bluebells are so lovely, and they're so rare now, aren't they? And I got in a bit of spat my dummy out a bit and cursed that corner of the field, and for years it would grow nothing. He'd seed drill it every year, and he'd try and make things grow on it, and nothing would grow there. It was just bare ground because I'd cursed it. And then a friend of mine who was a Buddhist, and I mentioned this to him, he said, the karma of that is absolutely terrible. He said, you must go back and lift the curse because that's really, really heavy, bad karma. So I did, and then the next year it was all happy and green again. But I know that there's been many instances where the Native Americans put curses on specific places. And so you could sort of say, include that in genius loci or spirit of place. The other thing I was thinking about in relation to this is, I think very young children detect a presence in everything that we think is inanimate. So for them, their toys have a personality or a soul, and who hasn't had a child with a pet stone? You know, some children have a real relationship with a stone or a stick. I can remember my daughter and her friend, when they were very young, would carry a stick around, and they'd give their stick a name, you know, talk to it. And I think they're getting something that we've lost. So thinking everything in a way has spirit, and I feel that. And I think, again, asking permission of genius loci, I think is important, and it's just polite, isn't it? You know, you don't walk into a stranger's house without knocking. But then again, I do believe also that we have authority over all the spiritual beings that are on this planet. You know, we have been told that we are a little lower than the angels, and that we have authority through the right protective being to command any spirit that there is, up to and including Beelzebub, Lucifer, the devil, old Nick, whoever you want to call him, and his cohorts. And so I think it's nice to ask permission where you need to, but where you need to use your ability to command a spirit, you should use it. And in where there's troublesome spirits, particularly where they're affecting or possessing other people, particularly children, you should use your ability to command to bind and to exile a spirit, even if all you do is ask the bouncer angels to please take it away for re-education. You don't have to do all this, oh, I damn you to hell, and all this bollocks that people do. But if they're causing trouble, they do need to not be there, and you do have the authority to move them. But it's always a good idea to have a think about what their destination is. You know, like the way you don't throw the contents of your dustbin out into the street. You think about what the destination of the various things in it are and where they might be beneficial rather than a nuisance. And so when I have to move on troublesome spirits, if they won't speak to me and tell them who they are and what they want, I just ask the angels to take them away and re-educate them. So that's kind of wandered a long way from Genius Loci, hasn't it? So I'll shut up because I can see Peter's got his hand up. But thanks for listening.
Thanks, Mary. Very eloquently put.
You start.
Hi there. Can you can all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, Peter. Hi, Peter.
I think that Mary raised a very valid point about permissions whenever you're entering into any space. It's like, as she says, knocking on your neighbour's door. You don't just, walk into their back garden. You do it on their terms, not on your terms. And I'm thinking back of an incident several years ago when I was working with two other healers, if you like, earth healers, on a very large estate up in Cheshire, where we had to do work in 3 separate areas across the huge acreage that was there. And one of the places we had to work was in a Victorian walled garden in which there was a maze. And we all entered into this space together, but I was immediately stung on the top of my head with a wasp. And I had to stop and think, why did that happen? The place was full of wasps. And so I withdrew and then dowsed and found that I didn't have permission from the spirit of place to be in that particular part of the land. Only the girls were allowed to be in there. And so they did what they had to do. They had to walk the maze, they had to sing some songs, they had to do all sorts of stuff. And by the time we finished, all the wasps had gone and they were replaced by butterflies. So it was a very valuable lesson for me, although it was a painful one, because every time I think of it, I get this shiver on the top of my head, which reminds me that it's important to seek permission from whatever it is that is looking after that space before you enter it to try and change things. Thank you.
Thank you. Great point. Good point.
I just say to Mary, you said that bluebells were quite rare. Not down here. If you come down to Sussex and go in the woods here, the right time of year, you just get blue carpet of bluebells.
That's really nice. We've had HS2 up here. They've done a pretty good job of eliminating bluebell woods around here. But yeah, they are really under attack around here from farmers and road developments and railway developments and all sorts of other things. And they're my favourites. It made me quite angry because this farmer had several hundred acres of land and he didn't need this corner of a field. It was just, just greed. Made me cross. Beware of making Mary cross. You never know what awful thing might happen next. Only joking. Don't walk on the dark side anymore. I have done that stuff.
That almost sounded like a challenge, Mary, but we'll abstain.
It's going to end up like on Harry Potter where they have the Battle of the Wands, isn't it? Who can put a horrible curse on who first? No, let's not go there. Let's not do that one. Glad to hear you've got lots of bluebells. You might be getting a visitor in bluebell season now. I'll take that as an invitation. Thank you, David.
There's Arundel in Sussex.
Nice part of the world.
In Wanstead, near London, we have Wanstead Park with a huge array of bluebells. It's wonderful.
Mm.
Mm.
I think I'd love to say goodwill to all people, because I think their talk of dark side and being cross, it's better to think happily.
Oh yeah, definitely. We all have our moments, don't we?
How do you think your question has been answered, Mave?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. It's nice to hear other people's interpretations. A few years ago, I went on a walk with the Gatekeeper Trust, who do pilgrimage in the landscape. And I found at the beginning of their walks, what they do, they get the whole group together and they do like a little ritual where they call on what they call the luminous beings and ask them for the blessings and protection. So I thought, well, that's a good idea, because the luminous being can be absolutely anything that you believe in. It could be an angel, a devic being, God, whatever. And so I've started doing that when I go out with a group of dowsers now. Before we start, we do a cut down version of the Gatekeeper Trust one. We just say, kindly luminous beings, guardians of this place, we're here in love and peace and ask for your blessings and protection while we're in this space, and so let it be. And when we do that, I always feel some sort of energy surround the group. So I know it's obviously working. And then what we try to remember to do at the end, providing everybody leaves together and just wandered off, is to go back to the same place and do the same thing. But this time, we're basically saying, kindly luminous beings, we leave in love and peace, and thank you for your blessings and protection. And again, you can feel the energy that was surrounding the group seems to withdraw. And say you were standing just out of the side of a churchyard, it just withdraws and seems to go back to where it came from. So to me, I'm not exactly sure what the spirit of place is, but I do feel it when we do this little ritual. So yeah, it's been interesting to hear everybody else's, and I'm looking forward to hearing Barry's question.
Thank you, Mave. Thanks very much.
Should we go for that then?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just going to leave Maeve's question there for about 30 seconds, because I forgot to start recording. So if anybody's watching the video later on the YouTube channel, this is what we were talking about.
Right.
And then if they want to pause it and then just read through it quietly themselves, but that's what we were talking about. And I'll go on to Barry's question now. Do you want to go through that, Barry?
Yes. I think I'm right to talk. Yeah, what I'm saying is that I found the biometer very powerful, a very powerful addition to use in my own alphabetic numeric code or card, maybe because of the numbers, words and colours each represent very powerful energy in themselves. And I've taken the liberty to add the alphabet around the outer top edge or top side, just outside of the numbers, and I found that to be additionally helpful. The question is, how should I use the biometer to diagnose and heal disease? So there's any comments on that?
But Barry, can I just ask regarding the alphabet, the placing of the alphabet?
'Yep.
What do you use that for, or how do you use that, or could you give us an idea of what you're doing with that?
Well, the card that I use, I actually use numbers and letters, and I get information when I ask questions. I get information spelled out on my small card.
Right.
And
so the pendulum will be directing you to making
words, basically. Yeah. Yep.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Not sure I believe it all, but
say that again.
I'm not sure I believe everything I get, but I get a lot of information. I've bought and sold property, bought and sold a boat, and I ask questions about, what price should I list something at, and what price will I get? And it's amazing how many times I've come out with the right answer.
And is that done through the compilation of the words then, through that alphabet system that you use?
Words and numbers, yes. Yeah. And where I've been buying or selling something, I've actually asked, what should I basically, what people are prepared to pay for something if it comes to that. And it's like getting inside their mind. I do try to use it for good purposes, of course, but I found it really, really good. But with the biometer, the fact that you've got the colours and then the words are very in themselves. The words have a vibration, and then your numbers, I found them very good. So I've been using it in addition to my own card. My small card only fits in my wallet, and where I might even get that biometer reduced down to a small size.
Yeah.
So I can carry it with me easily. So, but I found that has actually intensified the result I've got from my own card. So
how interesting!
And on the back of that, the back of my own card, I've got a 10 segment from 0 up to 100%.
Right. Yeah.
Which I douse over food or products in the supermarket or chemist shop to get a rating on whether they're any good or not. A bit like muscle testing, I guess.
Yeah. Very good. Very good use of practical dowsing.
Yeah.
Barry, in your question, you mentioned about diagnosis.
Yes.
And that's something that we don't really support,
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good point Richard makes there with that idea of diagnosis of when I'm using the biometer for healing purposes, then it's not something I've ever tried to do, is use it to diagnose anything. It's a dangerous game, really, I think. And however, the diagnosis that you're given, or if somebody that you're working with has a diagnosis, that's a value, absolutely a value. However, in using the biometer, then all we're looking to do is really to understand the person as a vibrational aspect. So the idea of the biometer, the way I use it anyway, is that the overall flag that I sort of adhere to is that natural healing will occur if the circumstances are correct, if the nourishment of the vibration is correct. So every symptom has a vibrational relationship. So every symptom we have is detectable through vibration, but as people, we function best within the normal range, which is signified on the biometer between 5,500 and 8,500. So the vibration of our body, which if we can adjust it to within that range, which is the natural range of the Earth's frequency, of the Earth's vibration. So we have to have this strong connection with the Earth, because we absorb energy and we discharge energy to and from the Earth. So without that strong connection, then that process won't be possible. There'll be a disharmonic there. So you have to vibrate at the level of the Earth to discharge any energy that you are creating, or any disharmonic energy. And we're nourished by the energy of the Earth as well as the stars and the sun, etc., etc. So the idea of using the biometer is just about, it gives us a starting point. If we can identify somebody being deficient or the low region, then we can start to investigate as to why they're in that region. And once we understand the reasons why they're in that vibration, then it gives us the awareness to be able to help to alter that aspect of that individual in order to bring them back to within the normal range, where natural healing will automatically occur, because it's a birthright of every one of us. So it's the idea of, it's really, I use it really as a gauge to gauge the starting point of somebody, and then to ascertain that that what we've investigated, what we've released, has had the effect of altering a person's vibration into the normal range. And if a person can maintain and sustain the vibration in the normal range, then automatic healing, natural healing will take place. So that's how I've come to use the biometer. Yeah.
Okay, that explains it very well.
Does that explain it to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
can I ask you a question on that? And that is, where does diagnosis stop and energy rate begin?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Angus, sorry.
Well, Richard was pretty clear that with dowsing, we don't do diagnosis.
Yeah.
And when you talk about checking out the frequency of a person being within or without the normal range,
yeah,
that has a diagnostic component. So where does diagnosis begin and end?
Yeah, well, only a diagnostic component, only to the level of what the vibration is.
Or a possible cause, rather than the diagnosis, a possible cause, for example, geopathic stress, or other things that you mentioned in your course, George, with chords and
energetics,
yeah.
Energetics, yeah.
That's more of the case rather than diagnosing a condition as such.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're really using it to just identify the level of vibration. That's really all that we can use it. That's all I can use it for. So it's the whole idea that the low vibration or the deficient vibration refers really to that person losing energy in some way. Now, they must be losing energy for them to become unwell. There must be an aspect of depletion, energy depletion, for them to become unwell. So once we know where they are on the biometer, then it gives us a starting point, Angus. It's a guide, if you like, or a gauge to give us a starting point to start to investigate then as to the reasons why their vibration has become deficient, low, or out of the normal range. And that's there's a whole host of reasons why that may be, that may have occurred. And so we start to investigate it in sort of all sorts of ways, down to the level of the different parts of the brain having been affected by, a drop in vibration. So as well as their environment the person's living in, as well as, energetics that are concerned with and around the person as well. Does that answer?
Sorry.
Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. While you're speaking, I just rated myself, and I'm between 550 and 6,000, 5,500 and 6,000. So I'm on the cusp of low and normal.
Okay.
And then I checked with my own card, and it suggested I should go outside and ground myself because I don't get out on the grass very often. So grounding is very important, and for other reasons, it could be other things as well. But I'll go and do that later and spend some time out on the bare grass and lawn.
That's a good point.
See if that rating comes up to
that would be interesting, Barry, to do. It'd be interesting from your point, from your own investigation into yourself. That would be a good. What I could suggest, or may I suggest, that you could ask what your normal vibration could be. So you've ascertained where you are now, and if you were, potentially can you align yourself to a higher vibration than what you're at the moment?
And the answer I just got was 9,500.
Right. So you're although you're on the cusp of low and normal, the potential for you is to be holding a vibration of 9,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what you could do is you could do what you suggested, is go out onto the earth and spend a bit of time on there and come back in and check your vibration. But you could also ask the release of lower vibrational aspects of yourself.
Okay. Yep.
And you do this and validate it through the swing of the pendulum.
Yep.
So you don't even need to identify what what these are. You may have to, as time goes on, you may have to start to identify what that is. But as a general release of the lower vibrational aspects of you could do that this evening, and then allow the pendulum to pick the line that you've already ascertained in your mind, which is the 9,000, where you could be potentially holding that vibration at. So you could release the lower energy, and then just let the pendulum swing up through the 6,500, 7,000, 8,000 to the 9,000, and just let that vibration subtly what's the word I'm looking for? Subtly embed within you.
Right.
And then just see how you feel over the next couple of days. See what occurs for you. See, you know, because with every change in vibration, there is a cause and effect with the minute you start to change your vibration, it causes and affects certain other things.
Yeah.
So that, you know, if you're actively going to try and raise your vibration, then you'll start, there'll be things will start to occur, you know. I don't know what those are, but they'll be, you know, they'll be by the very nature of you changing your vibration.
Yeah.
And it's done, you know, we can all do it. You can do it through intent, our own intent, and ask and shall receive sort of idea. So there is a potential that we can all, you know, be our own healers, if you like.
Can we bring Ali in? Ali's got a hand up.
I was just thinking as you were explaining that, George, to go through the process you were describing to raise your vibration, and you said to see what happens over the next few days. And the phrase that sprung to my mind is one that I'm not a healer, but I know someone who is, and they've got the phrase quality blankie time, that you've done a lot of energetic work on yourself, and maybe do it when you know you don't have anything on for a few days, because you might wipe yourself out. Is that something that you have come across? I've been to a chakra healing workshop, and she said, take it easy for a few days, and you know, it was 10 days for me. So so I you know, don't do it when you've got a busy few days coming up. would be my thought, but I'm not a healer.
Well, I mean, sorry.
David's got his hand up. Somebody mentioned chakras, I think.
No, I was going to avoid that one totally. I don't want to upset everybody in the group today. I'll save that for next month. But no, my answer to Angus about using dowsing for diagnosing, unless you are a medically trained professional with a current certificate in your field, and you have to be in the right field to do the right type of diagnosis, even on animals, it is illegal. And if you get caught, they will come down on you like a ton of bricks. So, but what you can do, and I really fall into this bracket because what I do is just diagnostic, and that's it, kind of. I have to stick with the frequency or the colours of the problems. So I show people how to see the colours, which is the frequency, as George was saying, and just explain to them that they can actually increase their vibration, change the colour, bring it back up to the indigo that it should be. And if I stick with that, I'm within all the legal kind of boundaries, but it does the same thing. In actual fact, it does better than telling someone, oh, that they've got cancer, oh, they've got this or that. If they've got a broken bone, they need to know, and, you know, kind of, because they have to go and get it strapped up. But that would be brilliant yellow flash, and they'd be able to see it. And I could just say, you need to go to the doctors to get your brilliant yellow flash sorted out. But using dowsing for diagnosing is a definite, you know, for all our sakes, because if some people start doing it, they'll come down on all dowsers.
Thanks, David. It's an interesting aspect about diagnosis, actually, and the value of diagnosis in treating the body when it's not well. And we're led to believe, we're conditioned, if you like, to think that we have to know what's wrong with the body in order to treat the body. but that doesn't actually, it's actually sort of fabrication, if you like, in a certain way, because the body's own intelligence does the work with the right information, and the right information is the frequencies within the body.
George, I'm going to have to upset you, but the right information is having your colour chart round the other way round. Because I've checked it and double checked it again. And even if you go into the emotional lists that people have compiled, red's the lowest, indigo's the highest, and all the way through, even on the electromagnetic scale, red's the lowest, blue's the highest. On the musical tones, red's the lowest, blue's the highest. So I'm sorry, but yeah, if you're using that chart, you're going to turn it up the other way. You'll be fine.
There is a school of thought with that chart, David, that it's the colours relate to. I mentioned this before, I think. Did I mention it before to you? About the pH and the acidity of the body.
That's the colours. The colours and the relating to the pH.
Yeah. Yeah. The colours, it's the pH and acidity within the body. I think, yeah.
Well, would the acidity, normally the acidity would be red, I thought, and then getting into the other shades, you get alkalinity up to the blues. I haven't got a pH chart with me at the moment, but check that.
That one pH test kit, you can't see it because it's reflective, but the pH in the body is important, yes. And one of the main things you want to cut out is sugar if you want to get anywhere. But I can't see what it's saying. 7 is neutral, isn't it? So yes, on there it's kind of green.
Yeah.
But red is no, it doesn't really. Doesn't really relate to the chart either. Sorry.
Should we go on to the next question? Your next question, Barry?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just share the screen. Second question relates to negating negative lines. Do you want to go through that, Barry?
Yeah, well, as I understand them, Curry and Hartman, and then the other one is underground water energies, or water streams where they generate energy. I personally use copper water pipe filled with a shungite mix of a mix of shungite and mortar in the copper pipe. I believe meditating or praying over a line can shift it to a safer location, say away from the sleeping place. I was just wondering if anyone had any thoughts on the other ways of, or whether these ways are effective as well. Because I'm fairly new at this, only 3 or 4 years.
Well, if I may, Barry, I don't know if anybody else was wanting to say anything there, but you can use the biometer for exactly that same thing.
Okay.
So you can change the level of a line running through your bed through using the same concept as I've just said to you about using for yourself.
Right. Okay.
And then you can check the line. You can investigate that once you've done it. Once you've gone through the process of asking permission, and that it's in keeping with all the other beings that are living around this line or are affected by this line. And if you're getting the positive response, the may I, can I, shall I, to change that, then using the gauge, you can identify the frequency of the line so that it becomes that instead of it being good or bad, it is just a frequency. And what we want to do is we want to try and align that frequency to the normal range. So you can use the pendulum in exactly the same way as how we've just described. So yeah, that's how I would suggest that you could do that.
Okay.
Mary, did you have your hand up?
I did, thank you. Yeah, I was going to ask something about the shungite pipe, but I want to come back to George first and say that was really interesting what you said there, George. I'm obviously going to have to spend a bit more time playing with your biometer, because it seems like it can do a lot of different jobs.
Well, it's not it can do a lot of different jobs. It's that we're capable, we're creative beings.
Yeah,
so,
agree.
But when I first came into dowsing, where I found people got lost in this idea of how to investigate things and the questions to ask, etc., etc. We don't need to know anything that's good or bad, demonic or whatever. All we need to know is what is the frequency of. And once we know that, we then have the capabilities to, with intention and with our, with our spiritual hats on, we then have the ability to change the frequency of these lower frequencies, or indeed excessive frequencies. We have the ability to do that through the dowsing process. But if we get caught up, Mary, in the idea of things being either satanic or there's we don't need to go into that, because
I agree with that.
It's a minefield, and it can take us down some real rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Just keep it clean and concise. What is the frequency? What's the frequency of my bed? What's the frequency of the seat I'm sitting on? And then ask if you can change it. Ask if you have the ability to change it. May I, can I, shall I? And if you do, use the pendulum, get it changed, release the low energy, bring it up and let it settle within the normal range, and then check it over a number of days and see how you feel in response to that situation that you've done.
Would you go back and check that after some weeks or some months, George, to see that the energy change was still compatible with the client?
Well, you could do, yes. I mean, I don't particularly like the idea of checking things, because by the very nature that we feel we have to check, we're diminishing things a little bit.
I agree.
So if we have a mindset that we have to keep checking, then we're creating the aspect that is going to change.
We're creating the possibility that it might not work.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It's almost like we're creating another reality where what we've done isn't going to work long term.
So my advice is always don't open the door to doubt.
Absolutely.
And checking keeps opening the door to doubt.
It's a weakness, isn't it?
It's a weakness.
Excessively check things.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. So I'm with you on that. Could I just go back to what I was going to say, George, before I gave you that big round of applause, which was I was going to ask about the copper pipe filled with shungite. Well, there's three things I'd like to ask about that. One is, when you say you filled it with mortar, I'm hoping that's lime mortar and not cement. 2 is shungite seems to me really expensive. And so it seems like quite an expensive cure. And 3 is, was it your own idea or is it one that you've got from somewhere else? Just interested about the whole pipe thing.
I got that from the pendulum.
So your pendulum
And,
led you to that, yeah?
and gave me the formula, 13%, and using mortar. Yeah, cement mortar.
Lime mortar, not cement.
No, cement mortar.
Really cement mortar.
Yeah.
It just,
So what problem do you have with cement mortar?
it's just not a material that I think has a very high vibration, and I think it deadens things. I would never live in a house that's built with cement, for instance, because for me, with my energy, I find cement quite toxic. So I always live in places that are built with lime mortar because that's me.
Is cement not made from lime? Is cement not made from lime?
Well, it's a different process. When you make lime mortar, you're using, let me get this right, slate lime, aren't you? And I think cement is burnt lime, which is, I think, is calcium oxide as opposed to calcium. Oh, my chemistry is very rusty. It's different stuff anyway, and it works a different way. Because when lime mortar cures, it pulls in carbon dioxide out the air. And it has a very slow curing process. It takes weeks, whereas cement's different. And I wish I could tell you, because I live in cement central here in Derbyshire. There's cement burning works all around me, chucking muck into the air. Anyway, that's just a small detail. Yeah, if that's what, it sounds expensive. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work, or that I don't think it's something I have ever thought of doing. Has anybody else shoved a pipe full of cement and crystals? Is this just a one-off?
It's a kind of a controversial subject. It's one of these topics that it might be saved for another month, because I'll argue the point to anybody that a pendulum is a pendulum, and ultimately you don't really need one at all. Whereas other people will say that you need specific pendulums for specific things. And hence the big arguments arrive. I had one for 15 years with Sandy MacKenzie, who lost in the end. But yeah. But at the end of the day, if you believe that pendulum is going to work the best for you, that is the best pendulum for you.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, so, you know, I think people make these things and they believe it works and it works, then that's great. It's just, when I went in a shop to buy some shungite, they wanted £9 for a really small piece. And being a good northerner, I shuddered to think how much it would cost to ram it up a piece of copper pipe. You know, I probably want to think of something that didn't cost any money. But that's each to their own. I'm not criticising, I'm just interested.
The shungite is crushed up and in very small particles and mixed with, but I will look at the lime mortar as you suggested, and then mixed in a liquid and then put into the pipe. It's about a 16 mil copper pipe, water pipe. If you use just the water pipe alone, it'll back up the energy. But I haven't tried dissipating the energy with other means, less physical means.
Some interesting experiments to be played with, I think, there.
So Barry, it's you push that rod into the ground. It's not using it as a pendulum. You're using it as an aerial.
No. What I do, I get the line, work out the width of the line. I've had them up to about over 1/2 metre wide. If it's entering a house, I'd dig a small trench on the northern or eastern side of the house where the line's going through at that direction, and put the pipe crossing the line. And I found that using the shungite, if you use the copper, it'll back up the energy. But using the shungite, it actually just the energy dissipated and absorbed into the shungite or the pipe. So
thank you.
I find using, if I just do a non-physical thing, that people find that hard to believe, but if that it's working, and I think using the pipe, you can see something. The fact that it's conductive material, particularly the shungite. The shungite's about £50 a kilo, but you don't need much of it at 13% in a small pipe. So if it does the job,
totally get what you say about client satisfaction. It's like if you go water dowsing and you haven't got a pair of rods, you know, the size of I don't know what, they don't believe anything's happening, do they? It's like the way that horse vets always wear a waistcoat and a trilby hat, because if they don't, you don't think they're a proper vet. In fact, they call themselves doctors. The really stuck-up ones do. They're a horse doctor and they wear a trilby. So it's kind of like if you're a dowser, you've got to have rods, haven't you? I was having a random conversation with somebody today who's interested in dowsing and wants to do a course. And he said, well, you have these rods, don't you? And it's all about the rods. And everybody thinks it's all about the gizmos, don't they? Yeah, the clients, they like the gizmos. I'd say, Barry, if they pay you well for shoving a piece of copper pipe full of cement and shungite in the ground, then do it. Because, you know, I'm notoriously bad at getting paid for jobs because I just go along and go, yeah, do that and gone. I'm not very businesslike. You've obviously got it taped. I should come and have some commercial lessons with you.
I think one of the things David said, probably the most important thing in it all, you know, Barry, is that when you do it, you have to have that belief that it's done, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so if you're using, so you know, I suppose from the point of view, my point of view would be that if you know, if once you've gone through that system that you've got and you've placed that in situ, if you carry that belief that's it, that the problem is rectified, then that's the key, really, rather than the items you're using or the things that you know that are in the ground. I think anyway. I think that's the most important thing.
Well, I'll use both from now on. I'll use the copper pipe and the biometer to reduce the energy.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
George, can I bring Suzanne in because you've got a question?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Richard. Hi, Suzanne.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I was just. I'm really sorry. I have some notes from a course I had with Arne Groth. It was from 2001, and I can't find the notes. But we also did some experiments with some kind of crystals and Curry lines and Hartmann lines. But we used a garnet, a piece of garnet, and put that on Curry cross. And what happened was that it split the cross into I don't remember if it was 8 or 12 smaller lines. So it was easier to neutralize on a certain place. And we also use amber, a piece of amber on a cross. and that will also neutralize. And he had a sort of sound vibrator where he played a sort of tone scale, and he had a sort of number. It was a sort of number coming out from this machine when it was a Hartmann line, and another number for Caroline, for example. And then he had a sort of mathematical calculation where he could calculate out a piece of copper thread, and that copper thread had to be exactly at the millimeter through that calculation he was doing. And I tried that, and for me it works very well. And I also remember that I had problem with smoking at that time in 2001. And he also helped me with using copper thread to quit smoking. And he was going through my aura and all the layers. And we came to a sort of age when I was a teenager where this smoking started at first, and we went through another different kinds of things through the aura. And then he calculated out, I think it was 3 different kinds of copper thread, and he wired it around his finger. And then he rolled out the second one and the third one, and then he had some tape around everything, and then he said, use this around your neck and put it over your heart chakra, and it worked. So I think I had these copper rolls about 6-8 months or something, because I wanted to be very sure. I still have it. But he was very good at calculating kinds of that. And I had taken so many notes from a course, and I also visited in his home in Värmland in Sweden, and we also did some kind of experiment from labyrinths and different kinds of minerals, but that's another topic. Yeah, so and I can't really find my notes because it's so much information there. But if I found them, I can give you all the details and how the calculation was made and everything.
Very interesting. Thank you,
yeah.
Suzanne. Very enlightening.
Thank you.
I had a problem once where I couldn't find something, and it was my handbag. And it was very important to have my handbag with all my stuff in it. So I used my rods and asked, is it in this room or that room, and went round. And I was looking on the floor to where it pointed, and I thought, oh, it's not working. And then I looked up, and it was hanging there, above there. So it might be an idea, if you've got rods, to just ask them, where is my notes? Where are my notes? And then you might find them. Be good with that.
Yeah, thank you. I have gone through with a pendulum here, but I have some very vague, very not so strong hits from it. And when I think I should go through a box, I go through every paper, but I can't find it. Maybe it's on the, the 3rd floor where I have also moved a couple of times since then. So it's somewhere in the boxes somewhere.
Susan, can I just ask you then, as regards to the copper, what's the copper actually doing?
Yeah, well, it's for example, if you would like to neutralize a curry line, you have to just take this exact length of a copper thread and wire it through a pen or something very round, and then you put it like a spiral upside down. And I used just a piece of tape. I think so you have to put one in each end of a room, for example, because they are shifting every 58 minutes. They shift the flow, so it has to be one in every end of the room where the line crosses the walls. So you put one with each wall. And so I used the tape just to put it up. And for me, it worked very well. I was more also sensitive to all kinds of lines and negative things at that time when I met Arne. So he was like a gift from heaven. He was like an angel for me, coming and show me how I can handle all these things. Unfortunately, he's not around anymore here in this dimension, but I don't want to go into this more, but yeah. But if I found all the calculations, because I know I was very I did the exact calculation with the explaining, so I could easily understand it when I should pick it up later sometime. But they are somewhere, and I would be happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David?
Microphone on. A long time ago, Sussex Dowsers invited Billy Gore. Some of you might have heard of him, down to Sussex to do a workshop for us. And he came along and he was showing us how to back people over a waterline, which is said to be detrimental to most people, and using muscle testing. So he would get you to put your arm out, and he would push down on your arm as you walk backwards. And when you walked over the waterline, you lose all your ability to be able to hold your arm up through his pushing. Okay. He tried it on me, and he said, right, I'm going to walk you into this detrimental line. And I thought, I don't want that. Still stepped backwards, and it didn't work. He said, how on earth did you do that? I thought, well, did I? I just thought to myself, I didn't want to be affected by it. It was about just before lunch, so we went for lunch, and I was chatting to him at lunchtime. And I said, well, in reality, I could get anybody to do that. I'll pick up a stone on the way back from the pub to the hall, and we'll tell people that it's had a blessing. And if they hold it, they won't be affected by this waterline. You see, okay. He said, we'll try it just to prove you wrong, he said. I said, okay. So he had the stone. It was just a stone off the ground. Nothing had been done to it. And the next 5 people that he tried backing over the line, he had told them if they held the stone, it wouldn't affect them. And for every one of them, the line didn't affect them because they believed it. They believed this stone was going to protect them, so it did. Does that help you with your searchings? Or have I just insulted you? I hope I haven't. I'm just really trying to help. But interestingly, further on from that, he investigated as to why, and he found out that the stone enabled people to create a little bubble around their head, so it actually protected their brain, not necessarily the body. But with me, it was just because I've been doing it for so long, it was just a whole body thing. So it protected all of me. But the people that were holding the stone, they created a little protective bubble around their head, and that protected them from the energy of this water line, so they didn't react to it. So you must have heard of Billy Gorn, some of you. Yeah?
Yeah.
He even mentioned me in one of his books. I don't think he did by name, but he was kind of so taken by it that it was noteworthy, as it were.
That's like his red sock syndrome, but the reverse, I suppose. That so that a dowser got it into their head that he was wearing red socks and he couldn't douse if he was wearing red socks.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sure. Same sort of thing. Yes. So if you believe you're protected from a lot of these things, you are. You automatically create a shield around you which protects you. You don't really need anybody else. This is all about self-empowerment, which I'm just totally into. I don't do anything else. I just want everybody to be empowered, and but you can. You can just empower yourself to protect yourself from just about anything. And yeah, away you go. Which is why I go headlong into places like this, underneath this tree behind me, regardless of asking for permission and everything else. It's I believe I'm protected from it. Most of the time I am, until I start looking inside the trees at elementals, but then I've gone into their territory and I have opened up and I am looking for them, interacting with them, and I've been kicked by one or two, but all part of the fun.
So that means that if you believe that the energy line's negative to you, then it will be. And if you don't believe it, then it won't be.
I've never gone into positive and negative with energy lines, and that is a big question for you all regards energy lines, okay? And Chris is keeping really quiet there. It's kind of, we've mentioned Hartman and Curry grids here a couple of times, but on the Earth Energy Group's meeting, I don't think anybody talks about them, and we've never had anybody brave enough to come along and explain what they are. And people that I have dowsed with that think there are Hartman and Curry lines, they've shown me. And the last time that someone did, he kind of dragged me into the centre of this church and he said, "There's one there. There's an intersection of them." And I looked at them, and one was a water line and one was a magnetic line, and they collided, creating this anomaly. But then the big question is, so we talk about Earth energy lines, right? We talk about Curry and Hartman grids, and then there's the Benker grids, and then there's the magnetic grid, and then there's water lines. But nobody actually takes into consideration the fact that the Earth has a resonance of about 7.5 hertz. Yeah, so it has a sound. And any sound, anything that is generating a sound, the sound is created with structural lines. So when you start looking at cymatics and go further into that, sound has a structure, it is has a mass, It can be used for levitation and heating and cooling and as a weapon and all sorts of things. But it has structural lines. So the earth has a sound which says that it must have structural lines running around it all over the place. And yet no one ever talks about energy lines being sound, except for me and one other person that I know of. And I just have to ask why. So that's maybe a topic we could discuss next month. Yeah, but it also goes into the fact that we have mass, we have a sound, which means that we have to have a structural form on the sound that we are given off. And the structure of sound involves quite a lot of spiraling vortexes. And why do people not talk about those? They have to be there. Physics says so. It is scientifically proven, documented, photographed, and yet we just call them other things mistakenly. Yeah.
The word vibration is appropriate for sound and other things. Just vibration, common to all.
Oh, it is a vibration, yes. But sound tends to, it's the smallest air molecule is affected, and that has a structure to the sound created by that, but then that radiates out into the next one and into the next one and into the next one and into the next one in a sphere, and rather than going in a wave. So it's slightly more complicated than we're led to believe, but I'm going to shut up because Suzanne's got a hand up. Hiya.
Yeah, about what the Curry lines is, and what my grandfather, he was a dowser, and he had a sort of summer camp, and they had some gatherings there when I was a little child, and it was next to a small lake. So they had full control over what kinds of lines going where. But he taught me that where if there was an old building or something and there was a curry cross, it was very common that there was a sort of wasp nest there, and we have one in our little cottage, summer cottage, and that was a curry cross, and every spring, springtime, there was a new wasp nest at the same spot. And also when you, I don't know the English name for it, but these ant nests, these ant stacks, they are also built by the ants above a sort of quarry cross, because they I think they have the function of this negative, that for them it's a sort of protection, and
yes,
I think it's also the same thing for the wasp nests to that's a sort of protection for them to do their things and so on.
Yeah, I've had this discussion quite a few years ago with a few beekeepers. There was a couple of beekeepers who came into my Zoom sessions, and it was kind of thought that it's the possibility is that the wasp, and I think the word you were looking for was ants, little black six-legged critters. Yeah, So the ant's nest and the wasp's nest tend to be placed on hot spots of energy, and I don't call them positive or negative. I'm just calling them different frequencies of energy, possibly because the energy actually kills the little parasites that would try to live in the nests or live on the bees and the ants. And they can't thrive there, but the bees and the ants who suffer from that type of thing greatly can. That was the thought of at the end of the session. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but quite possible.
And I also learned from Arne that if you want to try to see what happened with the Hartmann lines, and you can also have something to measure it if you have pointers or what you ever use, to go out and search up a Hartmann line when there is a new moon, and then you go to the same spot when there is a full moon. And if it is summertime, when you have these ounce stack, these big ounce that is in the wood, big brownish ounce, they build such huge stacks. And if you are nearby there and you have spotted the line, so if you go there and check when the full moon is in the climax point, it's for about 10 minutes or so. And if the full moon is at the daytime, you can put out a white sheet on the ground, and then you will see when the full moon is exact that the ant starts to walk very irrational, because the lines will sort of switch off for these minutes when the full moon is exact. It's just for about 5-10 minutes or something. And then after 5-10 minutes, the line will come back and they will navigate as usual again. So that was some kind of tips that we got from Arne if we want to check more into detail how the lines were working, and with new moon and full moon. And with new moon, they were very wide, so they could be so wide sometimes that they could just overlap each other. And that was also around the new moon. And as more as we progress to the full moon, the Hartmann lines become more narrower and became very strong, I think, when it was the full moon. So they was more intense just before. So
yeah, well, yes, it's there's a few of us here from the Earth Energies group. I think we all recognize the fact that these energy lines vary and move around, and but it sounds like you're talking about the same thing that we called energy lines rather than the Curry and Hartmann grids. So there's a whole confusion over all of that, really, and trying to communicate with different people from different kind of learnings. can be difficult. But
I also heard that, like you're saying, that there is different names, and someone somewhere called them just lines or ley lines, and the word ley lines, that is a sort of head name for a number of different lines. And someone said
well, we've got the president of the BSD here, so officially in their writings, the ley line is an alignment of buildings that line up on a map, or sacred sites. It's an alignment on a map, I do believe, whereas energy lines are actually lines of energy, which do all sorts of one of the things. But so it is really difficult trying to communicate with even the people in the same group. Sometimes I'm calling one thing a name, and someone else is talking about the same thing and calling it a different name, and we end up spending half the evening arguing over which name they should be called, and it's just a bit of a nightmare.
I did find a book in the office, Earth Energies book, from the Earth Energies group from a long time ago. I think Billy Gorn had written it with all the terminology. I think he was trying to standardize everything, but he seems to have gone off on a tangent again.
The American Society of Dowsers actually use that as well as kind of your base. So the ley line is an alignment on a map, and energy lines are lines of energy. But then what energy they are is still greatly under debate. I swear that most of them are the sound lines I'm talking around, yet some of them are water lines which make a sound, but then they have a physical feature under the ground which you can dowse, so you can either go for the sound or the physical feature. And then there's the magnetic lines, and there may be more. I have yet to fathom. Now I know for sure what some of them are. I can kind of work on the ones that I can, But then it is said that the radio masts from the police kind of bands, they're all switched on all the time. And then the information, the communication is kind of put down that transmission. But because they're switched on all the time, they connect up, and they connect up with lines. And those are kind of a dirty brown colour. And they're horrible. You really don't want to be anywhere near any of those. So that's a different type of line again. What's his name from the Dowsing Research Group? I can't think of his name, but he talks about dirty electricity.
Guy Hudson.
Guy, that's him, yeah. So you've got lines of dirty electricity quite often following water, or the earthing of electricity that follows water lines or water pipes or electric cables on the outside, and kind of creates these lines of energy. So yeah, it's a big subject. Nanny's got a hand up. I'm going to shut up.
Is that you inviting me to speak, David? How am I going to say this? My approach to what we call things, terminology in Earth Energies, would be the same as my approach to how people perceive a spirit of place. It's how it is for them. And when I started dowsing, I was put onto it's in the back of Billy Gorn's glossary. It's in the back of Beyond the Far Horizon that Nigel Twyn edited with Billy Gorn. So I knew that I didn't want to start naming things. If someone had already found it and named it, then that's the name I should use. But you still find things that aren't in there. And my solution is that we just have to learn each other's language, really. And I think we're only just beginning now, because it's only since the lockdowns that different parts of the country or the world even, that Dowsers in different parts of the country have spoken so often to each other about what they're finding, and sort of compared notes and realised that how it's been in their little enclave is different in Devon than it is in Northumberland. So I think we've just got to be tolerant of language and discuss and try to work out what each other means. And it may be that we call something, a Guy Underwood waterline, or what Nigel Twyn would call a pictogram, or what David would call a sound line. But I'm not convinced we're going to get a definitive name for an energy feature. It's
do you
different.
remember Mave and I and what was her name, Mave? We did a write-up for the BSD magazine, and we found about 60 different names for an energy line.
Tracy Vincent.
Tracy, yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah,
So
we
was
found
it-
about 60 odd of them. I think we had it published in Dowsing Today a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So that's what you're up against. 60 different names for more or less the same thing. And I'm sure there's not 60 different types of energy lines out there.
Right. I think maybe we should form a committee.
Yeah, can I, excuse me, can I just say something more about this line and names and such? When I was working together with Arnegroth, he was from the beginning a scientist, and he was a chemist. So he had used this sound machine, and that was a sort of way for him to know what kind of line, what that was. And then he, of course, connected with other people. I don't know where, but other people who have the same experience and was working in the same way he did. So so he had a sort of, he didn't have this one name for a number of lines. So he was very much into the analytical stuff to know exactly what line was where and what kind of vibration it has and such things. Thank you.
Thank you. Good show. Thank you very much. At the end of the day, we don't need to give them a name. We can just take what the frequency of the lines are. You know, why not? Why not? So many,
because they're more complicated than a single frequency. Some of them might have 2 or 3, 4, 5 different frequencies flowing within them.
Right. And are they not identifiable then either?
Well, I can, because I can see the colour of them, but
so
if
you can find the colour's the frequency, so therefore they've got to have a, you know.
Yes, but I'm not going to be the person that says this is what they are, because there are so many different versions out there already. I would like to teach everybody else how to see them, and then we can come to that as a community, but I'm not egotistical enough to do it by myself. Even me. Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Richard, I think that would be, we've just got past it.
Conclusion, yeah. Yeah,
Just gone past the 9 o'clock mark, so
some good questions and some discussion. Really good.
yes,
everybody. Well done.
excellent. And for those that remained on for the entirety, thank you very much. All the contributions. And the good thing about this is every time we're on, I think we all learn something new from it. So long may that continue, because I suppose that's what it's all about, really, isn't it? Our own development and growth. So thanks very much for coming on and sharing.
Okay, so
Thanks, George.
see you all next month.
Yeah.
First Monday again. Sorry, first Thursday. First Thursday.
First Thursday. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Thank you.